4, 3. What's up, Kansas City? I'm your host, Glenn Bryan Frizzell. Today we are taping at the historic Lincoln Building right here in the 18th and Vine District, Kansas City, Missouri, home of Cascade Media Group. Today's special guest is Program Manager at Cornerstones for Care. Please, let's give a warm What's Up, Kansas City welcome to Ms. Shelia Rancatore.
Thank you.
Ms. Rancatore, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. We are glad to have you here today. Are you from Kansas City?
I'm not. I've lived in Kansas City for about 20 years, though.
20 years. That's pretty much a long time.
It is.
Safe to call you a Kansas Citian.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about programs and services at Cornerstones for Care. Can you tell us a little bit about your organization?
Absolutely. Cornerstones is a family of agencies dedicated to strengthening children, families, and the communities that they live in. We are comprised of multiple organizations, which include Marillac, Ozanam, Spofford, and Gillis, as well as the Healthy Families programs. The program that I work with is within the Healthy Families program, and that's the Resource Development Program.
Healthy Families Program,
Programs.
and that's resource development. What outreach projects do you work on?
What we are working with in the Resource Development Program is developing foster and adoptive families in the Kansas City area, as well as 29 other counties in Northwest Missouri.
Does that involve PSAs or?
You know, we are still developing kind of our marketing campaign and our recruitment process, but then certainly as we're working with families, we do their training, their home studies, and then walk them through that licensure process while they are providing care to children.
Okay, we can talk about foster homes and adoption. Let's start by talking about adoption.
Okay.
A Child Welfare Information Gateway study shows that there were 2,734 adoptions in Missouri during the year of 2008, Ms. Rancatore. All of these adoptions were done in the court system. Does that number sound accurate?
Yes, it does.
What type of adoptions are there?
There are a variety of adoptions. Children can be adopted through private adoption agencies. They can also be adopted internationally. What I work with is our children who are adopted out of the foster care system.
Okay. What kind, you mainly work with the children who are adopted out of foster care system?
That's right. And here in Jackson County, there's about 200 to 220 kids adopted out of that system on an annual basis. Statewide, it's about 1,100 children a year in Missouri.
How is that different from private adoption?
I don't have a lot of those numbers. I think the major difference in private adoption versus public child welfare adoptions is just the types of children and the types of families that are involved in that process. Typically, private adoptions are more younger children, specifically infants who've been placed by their birth parent for adoption, whereas children in the child welfare system are typically older kids. They've experienced trauma due to the abuse, neglect, being removed from their parents. So it's just a different demographic.
Okay. Black children represent 15% of the children in the country, but make up 32% of those waiting for adoption. And I believe those are general numbers. We're not necessarily talking about child welfare system versus private adoption system. Hearing those statistics, Ms. Rancatore, why is it harder to adopt a black child?
I don't know that I would necessarily say it's harder to adopt a black child. I think anytime you're adopting children out of the child welfare system, they come with a variety of needs, quite honestly. They've been removed from their parents, which is traumatic. They've often experienced abuse or neglect, which is another layer of trauma that they've experienced. And those kids often just have higher behavioral needs because of that trauma. And so it really requires a special family who knows how to work with the needs the kids are exhibiting, who can really help provide them that safety, security, and stability that they need. Because we know if they can get in that home that can meet those needs, they're going to flourish.
They are going to flourish, and that is good news.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on transracial adoption? You talk about getting the child into homes that are flourishing, that are beneficial for the child. Have you experienced transracial adoptions before? I have
experienced that, and certainly it has been a long process within the state of Missouri and the child welfare system about whether children should be adopted transracially or not. And I've certainly seen that evolution in the 20 years that I've been working in that system. I do think children can be adopted successfully transracially. I think that if children have a safe, stable, loving, nurturing home that can meet their cultural needs, they can do well regardless of the race of the parent. I think it's critical, though, that families can connect children to their cultural heritage, whether the child is Black, Hispanic, American Indian. maintaining that cultural identification is critical to it, and having a support system that can really help the child recognize their culture and continue to connect with it is really important.
Now, I'm a single black man and I want to adopt a child. What is the process? What steps would I have to go through?
If you're interested in adopting a child, you can contact us at Cornerstones of Care. The number is 1-855-SERVE-KIDS. It's SRV-KIDS.
You say that one more time for
It's 1-855-SRV-KIDS, 1-855-SERVE-KIDS. We would take some basic information from you over the phone, get you entered in our database. We would then connect you with one of our subcontract agencies, which is either Missouri Baptist Children's Home or Midwest Foster Care and Adoption Association. We would have you attend an informational meeting just to get a little bit more information, make sure you understand the process, the types of children who are in the system. Then we would get you set up for training. And you first have to complete the foster care training portion, which is a 27-hour training. After that, there is a 12-hour training specifically for adoptive families. And it's really just to help prepare you to understand the grief, the loss, the trauma that children have experienced, what it's like to work in the system, having social workers involved in your life, all those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. As you're going through all of that training, you're also completing a home study with a social worker. So there's someone coming out, visiting your home multiple times. Wow. They're interviewing you. We do ask you to share a lot of personal information so we can get to know you, wow. know what type of child you could work best with, what type of child would work best in your home. We're gathering reference information. We're gathering financial information. You've got to pass a background check. So we wow. gather extensive information and put that all together in a home study. And at that point, you would be approved.
Wow, sounds like I'm, no, I'm not going to joke right now. Adoption is a very serious business. But I would like to ask you a question. Mm-hmm. I'm seeking a family. Mm-hmm. What kind of special qualities and traits would the agency look for to place the foster child okay. in a good home?
So what are we looking for in families?
Yes.
We are looking for families who are willing to open their home to the system, because certainly we know that families are often willing to accept children into their home, but children do come with a birth family. They often come with siblings. They do come with a social worker, a guardian ad litem, other people as part of that professional mm-hmm. team. Mm-hmm. And so we really look for families who are willing to work with that entire team. Typically when children come into foster care, the primary goal is reunification. So we are looking for families who are willing to work with the birth family towards reunification as the goal. So facilitating parent-child visits, maybe allowing phone calls, but really trying to engage the family in what's going on. Certainly at some point in the process, the goal may change to adoption. And so we ask, honestly, foster parents to play a changing role sometimes with families. Mm-hmm. But we're looking for families who can help children heal from the trauma that they've experienced, who can help others understand, maybe it's the teacher, the principal at school, the coach, but help those third parties understand what the child's been going through and help the child really thrive in their home and in their community.
Okay. A 2009 Child Welfare Information Gateway study, Ms. Rancatore, lists statistics to the claim that there is racially disproportionality in the child welfare system. Of the 510,000 children in the foster care system in 2006, mm-hmm. over 300,000, nearly 60% were children and youth of color. Black and Native American children, youth are 3 times more likely to be in foster care than white children, youth in certain states and counties. Hispanic children are also overrepresented. If that study is true, can you tell us why we're seeing those numbers?
Right.
Why the disproportionality?
Right. Unfortunately, I think we see disproportionality in a lot of systems in our community. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the child welfare system, the criminal justice system, mm-hmm. The juvenile delinquency system. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of that disproportionality. And I think that we're constantly trying to look at that to understand it and try to figure out how to best address that. Mm-hmm. What I know as far as the child welfare system is that there are so many community issues that impact families that lead to child abuse and neglect, whether we're talking about substance abuse issues, poverty, homelessness, high levels of stress, all of those kinds of things that play into abuse neglect situations. And what we know is that so many families these days are impacted by all of those things: mental illness, substance abuse, domestic violence. And all of those things play a factor in children entering foster care.
It sounds like the child who is suffering from some of these communities, some of these social epidemics, is already a couple of steps back. What is your role as program manager to ensure that that child will have a successful future, regardless of mom or dad may have been involved in drugs, mom and dad may not have been kind to each other, and I'm here in foster care. How do I catch up with my peers who I might be, interacting with later?
My role is to make sure that we have a number of highly skilled, qualified, trained foster and adoptive families who are willing to take care of those children, who understand their needs, can help them heal from the trauma that they've experienced, who can access the services that are available in our community, maintain those relationships with the extended family that the child may have, so that they can begin to heal from what they've experienced.
Are foster care parents paid a certain amount by the state?
Foster parents do receive a monthly maintenance payment, which is to help take care of the child. The kids need a lot of things, and so to buy those new shoes, buy clothes, buy diapers if it's a younger child, foster parents do receive a monthly stipend to assist with that.
I'm sure in your line of work you've witnessed many encouraging and heartbreaking stories. Would you care to share with our What's Up Kansas City viewers any special challenges, any special successes that you've experienced?
Sure. I think the greatest challenge that we're experiencing is recruiting those foster and adoptive families who are willing to care for the children. We know that there are over 1,000 children in foster care in Jackson County alone, and we certainly continue to need additional families. There are a lot of misconceptions and preconceived ideas about foster parenting and even adoption, and so we're really trying to address those at this point in time and really try to identify those families who can provide care for the children. When you ask about successes, certainly we have successes on a daily basis. We see children thrive with the services they're receiving. We see them excel at school. We see them join sports teams and dance teams and all those kinds of things, and get to participate in those types of normal childhood activities. There are families who provide foster care that are constantly working with the birth family so that children can successfully reunify. They maintain that connection with the family once the child goes home, continue to be a support system for the family. Maybe the kids still come over and spend the night periodically so that mom and dad can get a break, because we know that parenting can be a really tough job. As far as adoption, when I think about adoption, some of the most positive experiences that I think of are those families when, for example, a sibling group of 4 came into foster care, were placed with a single woman who was a little older. The girls became free for adoption. The foster parent didn't feel like she could necessarily care for all 4 children long term because they were spread over about 10 years in age. And so one of her adult daughters got licensed to also be a foster parent. She lived next door. She adopted 2 of the children, and the original foster parent adopted 2. So even though it was a sibling set of 4 that didn't live together, they grew up side by side, continued to have that extended family relationship.
That's awesome.
Isn't it?
That is wonderful.
And we see a lot of families beginning to do those kinds of things. I know a family right now who the teenager ended up in residential treatment due to some elevated needs, some behavioral kinds of issues, some social emotional needs. And while he's not returning to the original foster parent, her brother is now going to adopt him as he completes treatment. And so we see a lot of tremendous successes for the kids.
That is wonderful, Ms. Rancatore. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and why you chose to pursue this line of work?
In my career, I started out working in public child welfare. I got a social work degree, worked for Jackson County. It was then the Division of Family Services, now the Children's Division, because I really wanted to have an impact on children and families. And I found that working with kids in the foster care system was a tremendous opportunity to know that I was having a direct impact. And so worked for the state for a number of years and then have moved on to working in nonprofits in the Kansas City community.
Recently, the President of the United States signed an initiative, My Brother's Keeper, to create opportunities for boys and young men of color. I'm going to read a quote by the President. There are a lot of kids out there who need help, who are getting a lot of negative reinforcement, and there is more that we can do to give them the sense that their country cares about them and values them and is willing to invest in them. Do you think Cornerstones of Care will participate in any of the initiatives that the President and his think tank both come up with?
I hope we get that opportunity. Certainly, Cornerstones of Care is committed to doing everything we can to provide positive role models for children and for families, and really looking at the impact we can have within our community.
How important are education initiatives to Cornerstone?
Absolutely. Education is a critical piece for children and teens. They spend a large number of hours each day in the school system, and so certainly education is a critical piece for them.
Awesome. Is there any particular goal or mission statement at COC that you would like to share with us?
Our goal really is strengthening families. Going back to what I said there at the very beginning about, trying to strengthen children, families, and our communities. And that's really our focus through all of our programs.
Okay, Ms. Rancatore, we'd like to thank you for coming today. Do you have any final words? Can you tell our What's Up viewers how they can get involved?
Absolutely. First, I want to say thank you for allowing us to be here and share this information. I would encourage any of your viewers who are interested in either fostering or adopting to call us at 1-855-SERVE-KIDS, that's SRVKIDS, or to visit our website, which is www.healthyfamiliesforkids.org, and that's the number 4. So it's www.healthyfamilies4kids.org.
Ms. Rancatore, I'd like to thank you, and we certainly want to keep update as far as your progress and the services that are offered by Cornerstone, so we will be in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm your host, Glenn Bryan Frizzell with What's Up Kansas City. Remember, the sky is the limit. Aim high. If you shoot for the moon and you miss, at the very least, you would have landed among the stars. Check out more video online at www.whatsupkansascity.net. Till next time, take care.
CMG wants you to always remember, the victory we call success goes to the best prepared. When you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Thanks.